Okay, let's just dive right into this explainer. Today, we're going to challenge something you probably take for granted every single day, and that is your own intelligence. We're going on a journey to essentially upgrade your mental operating system. If you've ever felt like your brain is just kind of running on autopilot, or if you really want to understand the exact habits that separate truly exceptional thinkers from the rest of the pack, well, you are in exactly the right place.
So what truly measures intelligence? Like, be brutally honest with yourself for a second here. Do you measure your smarts by the random facts you know, your vocabulary? Maybe it's your degrees, or how fast you can crunch a math problem in your head. For the longest time, that is exactly how society has defined what it means to be smart. But as we're seeing, psychology research is revealing a pretty massive plot twist.
You see, while traditional metrics focus heavily on the actual content of your thoughts, like those math skills and big vocabularies, the true measure, and honestly the rarest type of intelligence, has almost nothing to do with that content. Instead, it is all about having the ability to watch your own mind at work. Think of it like being both the player on the field and the referee on the sidelines at the exact same time. The player is the one having the thoughts, but the referee is stepping back, observing, and analyzing them.
Metacognition. It literally translates to thinking about thinking. It's a beautifully simple definition, but it is the absolute core of the mental upgrade we're talking about today. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is that while most people are completely trapped inside their own subjective day-to-day perspectives, highly intelligent people operate on this meta level. They step totally outside of themselves to evaluate their own cognitive processes.
Okay, here's our quick roadmap for the journey today. We'll start by defining the rarest intelligence, then move into auditing your internal thoughts, simulating and updating reality, embracing the unknown, and finally, we'll talk about how to actually upgrade your mind. Let's get into it.
All right, Section 1, the rarest intelligence, breaking the mold. Moving right along to Section 2, auditing your internal thoughts.
Look at this contrast. A typical, normal mind just produces thoughts and feels emotions, right? You feel anger, you just are angry. But the metacognitive mind does something incredible. It audits those thoughts. We call this habit 1, cognitive detachment. It's the ability to step back and observe your own thinking as if it belongs to someone else entirely. I'm going to challenge you right now. Stop automatically trusting every single emotion you have. When you feel angry or biased, don't just soak in it. Notice you're feeling it, treat your mind like a scientific laboratory, and ask yourself, wait, why is my mind producing this specific reaction right now?
And look, there is a very real biological reason why this is so insanely hard to do. Psychology actually calls the human brain a cognitive miser. Essentially, our brains are kind of lazy. They vastly prefer the path of least resistance. Because of this built-in laziness, we have a terrible habit of just accepting our very first emotional reactions as absolute, undeniable truth, simply because it's so much easier than doing the work to challenge them.
So, to combat that lazy brain, high metacognition thinkers practice habit 2, internal skepticism. This means actively rejecting your first thought just to avoid overconfidence bias. When highly intelligent people form an opinion, they immediately hit pause and reconsider. They actually check their own work. They ask themselves, hold on, is my conclusion actually based on objective evidence, or is it literally just a lingering emotional response from some past experience?
Let's move to and see how this builds into Section 3, simulating and updating reality.
This brings us to habit 3, advanced predictive processing. Okay, have you ever mapped out a whole conversation in your head before it even happens? Highly metacognitive people are constantly running these internal simulations. They're modeling different versions of how an event might unfold, what the other person might say, and how their own potential responses could alter the entire outcome. To an outside observer, this abstract forecasting might just look like anxiety or overthinking, but it isn't. It is highly strategic thinking, explicitly designed to predict long-term consequences. And that process totally doesn't stop once the conversation is actually over. Enter habit 4, small self-updates. After a big meeting or a tough decision, the metacognitive mind naturally enters a reflection phase. Step 1, replay the interaction. Step 2, identify the assumptions that were made or where miscommunication sneaked in. And step 3, refine that thinking for next time. This isn't about obsessing over your mistakes. It's a very tangible, step-by-step evaluation process.
What all this really tells us is that true intelligence grows by learning from our own life's processing errors, not just from reading books or memorizing a bunch of facts. This continuous, daily self-monitoring is the exact mechanism that prevents our intellect from stagnating as we age. Basically, we learn by debugging our own lives.
All right, Section 4, Embracing the Unknown.
This brings us to habit 5, which is fascinating. It's the smart and confused paradox. Believe it or not, highly intelligent people often feel way more uncertain than lower IQ thinkers. They possess incredibly high intellectual humility, and they are acutely aware of their own knowledge gaps. So the crucial point is that a high IQ thinker does not feel threatened by being wrong. While a low-level thinker demands absolute certainty to protect their fragile ego, a metacognitive thinker views a mistake purely as valuable data. It's just new information needed to update their mental model of the world.
That intellectual humility is exactly what allows them to practice habit 6, analyzing the why. Metacognitive intelligence eventually looks outward to study the minds of others. Instead of just reacting emotionally to what someone else does, they try to understand the thinking process, the underlying systems, and the frameworks driving that person's behavior. They are essentially trying to reverse engineer how the other person forms their beliefs so they can predict their next move.
Because think about it, if someone acts out, a normal mind just judges the behavior and says, wow, they're so rude. But a metacognitive mind, they read the underlying patterns of ego and emotion. They decode the invisible game taking place right beneath the surface of our everyday social interactions. They're basically listening to what isn't being said.
Finally, Section 5, Upgrading Your Mind.
Now, if you're sitting there right now thinking, well, I definitely don't naturally do all these things, I have some fantastic news for you. Neuroplasticity. It's the brain's incredible ability to physically change and adapt, which definitively proves that these 6 habits are not just fixed genetic traits you're either lucky enough to be born with or without, they are absolutely trainable skills. You can actively train your metacognition simply by consciously slowing down and starting to question your own knee-jerk reactions starting today.
And this brilliantly illustrates what it ultimately comes down to. Are you going to be a passenger in your mind, or are you going to be the driver of your mind? Metacognitive IQ is considered the absolute highest form of intelligence, precisely because it is the only intelligence that allows your brain to actively improve itself. When you finally learn to observe your thoughts, catch your own biases, and continuously update your assumptions, you are finally taking the steering wheel. So as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with this question to really ponder long after you finish watching. Do you ever catch yourself analyzing your own thoughts, or do you find your thinking is more straightforward? Take a real moment today to reflect on which of these habits you might already practice, and which ones you need to start training. The laboratory is wide open, and the best part, it is entirely inside your own head. Keep questioning, keep observing, and keep upgrading your mind.